on at the scheduled time. So I'm going to do that by introducing Melinda Tankard-Reist from Collective Shout, based in Australia. So not quite sure what time of day it is over there. Probably 9 o'clock at night or something like that.
It's only 6 p.m. It's quite humane. Quite humane. Yes.
Well, anyway, thanks very much, Melinda, for agreeing to be with us today. And you're going to talk to us about harmful sexual behaviours in school and pinpointing pornography as a driver. So over to you, Melinda.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me to address your summit. It's a pleasure to be with you, and thanks for all of your efforts to protect children through age verification systems. I want to look at pornography as a driver in the increase in problematic and harmful sexual behaviours that we're seeing in schools in Australia and certainly around the world. Pornography is essentially the world's largest department of education, and it's educating our children into harmful ideas about bodies, about relationships, and about sexuality. And we're seeing the fruit of this never before seen experiment, this unprecedented experiment on the developing sexual templates of our young people playing out in schools around the world. Respect Women Society tells adolescent boys while also allowing them unlimited, unfettered access to porn. How's that working out? Well, it's not working out too well. And I have here Exhibit A in our failure to nurture and protect children. A Sydney school principal at a primary school took me aside. I was addressing a conference of school leaders. She took me aside and said, I need to tell you what just happened at our school. She said the 6-year-olds were given an in-class assignment and told to use their iPads and the app Pic Collage and make pictures of their favourite things. And this is what the little boys came up with. One of them was so proud of himself, you can see he stuck his face right in the middle until the teachers decided maybe this wasn't such a great idea after all. But to me, this is the best example I have come across of the outcomes when we let little kids be exposed to explicit online content. Cultural norms are taught through pornography. When boys learn early to enjoy, take pleasure in, laugh at, and get off on torture and humiliation videos, when they're fed a diet of rape porn and racist sexual abuse, does the avalanche of violence against women come as any surprise? We have a growing body of global data now testifying to the links between pornography and violence against women. In this 2020 study, it found exposure to violent and or misogynistic pornographic content has a significant association with attitudes supporting violence against women. The Journal of Sex Research reported porn use is associated with and predictive of sexual aggression, teen dating violence, and experiences of sexual victimization. Our Watch, which is our peak body in Australia to address violence against women, found in its report Pornography, Young People and Preventing Violence Against Women that studies have highlighted the high frequency of specific violent behaviours largely directed at women, including gagging, verbally abusive language, and the more generally prevalent portrayal of male dominance and female submission. Research suggests greater pornography use is associated with less progressive attitudes about gender roles, a belief that women are sex objects, and rape myth acceptance. Pornography as contributing to harmful attitudes which fuel violence against women is acknowledged as a driver in our government's national plan to end violence against women and children. In Australia, every year we see an increase in sexual assault statistics. And if you have a look at the second last paragraph there, extremely concerning was the finding that almost 61% of victim survivors were under the age of 18 when the sexual assault occurred. And given that around 87% of sexual assaults are never reported, the real figure would be much higher. disturbing data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics finds that adolescent males 15 to 19 in this country are committing the highest rates of sexual offending. So something's gone terribly wrong, hasn't it, in the formation of boys and what we have allowed them to be exposed to. Even more disturbing, if that's possible, by far the most common child sexual abuse perpetrator in Australia is another under 18 known to the victim, with numbers spiking in recent decades, and violent pornography was identified as a factor. You can find that research in the International Journal of Child Abuse and Neglect. Adolescent males identified as the cohort with the highest rate of sexual offending, and sexual abuse by known adolescents now identified as the single most common category of sexual offending against children. So what do girls tell me? I address thousands of girls a year in Australia, and the stories are getting worse, and they're getting worse younger. The stories that I used to hear from girls in senior secondary, I'm now hearing in primary schools. They tell me they're sexually harassed at school or on the school bus on the way home. They're ranked at school on their bodies compared to the bodies of porn stars. They're touched and groped at school every day, told their mothers are MILFs. If you don't know what that is, I may not tell you right now. Girls being threatened with rape if they don't send nude pictures. A new version of this is girls tell me that boys threaten to rape the girl's mother or sisters if she doesn't send him a nude. Being asked for sex acts during recess or lunch, being called names if you complain, and girls subjected to groaning and moaning noises every day. So routine sexual harassment at school, routine sexual threats, sexual intimidation. So a lot of girls are suffering as a result, and schools, many schools have failed to provide a safe educational environment by leaving these issues unaddressed. The official definition of harmful sexual behaviours, it's defined as sexual behaviours expressed by children and young people under the age of 18 that are developmentally inappropriate, may be harmful towards self or others, or be abusive towards another child, young person, or adult. It's a term that acknowledges the seriousness of the behaviour together with the impact it has. The trauma impacts and behavioural outcomes for children who have been sexually abused by another child are not significantly different from those who have been abused by an adult. We're seeing the rise in peer-to-peer sexual harassment and sexual assault globally. In the UK, End Violence Against Women report found that girls and young women are facing sexual harassment and assault on an alarming scale. Almost a third of the girls they surveyed don't feel safe, do not feel protected from sexual harassment in school. In 2022, police in England and Wales received reports of 14,800 rapes and sexual assaults against children aged 10 to 17, where the suspect was classed as a child, the overwhelming majority being boys. At Collective Shout, we partnered with a well-known Australian parenting author and expert, Maggie Dent. Maggie had a chat to me over brunch one day and shared with me what she was seeing in schools, hearing in schools. I was sharing what I was seeing in schools. She said, why don't we do a survey through our own networks of teachers to try to get a more fuller picture of the level, the prevalence of problematic and harmful sexual behaviours in schools. So this was just through our own networks, and remarkably, we heard from 1,000 educators in Australia. So this is the biggest data set of its kind, as far as I'm aware, globally. We published it as the SHOT Report, Sexual Harassment of Teachers Report. And I'm going to share some of the findings. Teachers reported students mimicking sexual acts that they had seen in pornographic content, making sexual propositions, and making rape jokes and threats. One teacher said, I had a student tell his girlfriend about his rape fantasies involving me. He also threatened to rape his girlfriend if she told anyone. 66.6% of survey respondents reported witnessing the sexual harassment of a student by another student. 57.4% reported receiving at least one disclosure from a student about being sexually harassed. 39.1% of respondents reported receiving between 1 and 5 disclosures from a student that they had been sexually harassed. One teacher said children showing other children pornography, sexual noises, children choking other children in the playground, children simulating sex from behind on other children from the age of 4. Year 5 and 6 students, so this is the last 2 years of primary school in our country, sending nudes after being continually asked to do so, photos then being passed around to other boys. Multiple teachers observed an increasing trend of male students pressuring female peers for sexual images. This was linked to the normalisation of and overexposure to sexual imagery on social media platforms. One Year 7 teacher observed this happening at younger ages. Quote, students in grade 7 are coercing girls into sending child exploitation material. Survey responses revealed a deeply concerning trend of early exposure to porn. Teachers reported instances of children as young as Year 2 accessing and sharing porn content through personal devices or social media. One teacher commented, I've had boys in Year 7 confess to me that they are addicted to pornography. In line with research that porn is a primary source of sex education for young people, one teacher indicated they were aware of, quote, students accessing Pornhub to learn about sex. Survey data reveals sexual groaning, so this is sexual groaning, grunting, moaning noises taken from porn sets, had become a widespread and deeply concerning issue in schools. Teachers are reporting this behaviour as one of the most frequently occurring forms of sexual harassment witnessed in their classrooms. 53.5% of respondents who had personally been sexually harassed at school said they experienced groaning noises made at them. The extent of the issue of sexual groaning and moaning represents a significant challenge for teachers. It disrupts the learning environment, normalises inappropriate sexual behaviour, and often goes unchecked due to inadequate responses from leadership. Teachers also observe the impacts of porn exposure with Year 7 students accessing porn online. It seems to be normalising sexualising harassment behaviour, one teacher said. Behaviours are becoming more covert, deviant, and expressed digitally using graphically violent and pornographic videos on simple group chats that start as homework groups and descend as the year wears on. Another teacher said, I've had to deal with an increase in sexual assault threats online, sexual images being shown, and girls being pushed to do sexual acts. Teachers commented that boys as young as Year 7 were making comments about rape in class or making rape jokes towards girls. Quote, girls in Year 7 are being told by boys that they will be raped. Other boys are making violent rape threats. One teacher commented, older boys state they intend to rape their future partners when they grow up. In 2024, an alleged incident of sexual assault in a Victorian school perpetrated by a 12-year-old is being attributed to porn-fueled behaviour by police. University of Melbourne researcher Gemma McGibbon commented on the incident, saying the pornography industry is culpable and is basically grooming our children to be abusers, and some boys are abusing because they're acting out what they're understanding to be their entitled rights. This is learned behaviour. This is socialisation into sexual harassment, sexual violence, sexual intimidation. It's grooming boys. They were not born this way. Around 6 child-on-child sexual abuse incidences are reported in Victorian schools every week, and many remain unreported. I think this quote from one teacher summarises what's going on. I believe there is an increasing disconnect between women as human beings and women as objects. Here's some other examples. Education Minister slams vile rape threat to Melbourne schoolgirl. A devastated mum. I've met with this mum and her daughter of a Bundoora secondary college student who was sexually harassed by 2 male peers, is calling on the government to enforce stronger punishments on perpetrators as peer-on-peer abuse incidents surge. This girl will never return to school. She's in such a traumatized state, and this happened on her first day at school, at secondary school, after being homeschooled previously. We're also seeing a rise of AI-enabled creation and distribution of explicit sexual imagery, deepfake, synthetic forgeries. I'm sure you're hearing about this in your own countries as well. Teenagers are selling nude deepfakes made from social media images, social media profiles, or from class photos, end of school magazines, photos from special school events. And this has been described as a new frontier of bullying and abuse. So male students are using easily available AI tools, nudifying and undressing tools to create and distribute explicit images of female teachers and their female peers. One example in Australia, a schoolboy arrested after 50 female students allegedly targeted in fake explicit AI photo scandal. These schools are not outliers. This is happening in multiple schools. These are just the ones that ended up being exposed in the media. I was quoted in the Age newspaper saying girls in schools across the country are being traumatized as a result of boys turning themselves into self-appointed porn producers. Now, I know my focus is on students, the impacts of porn culture, porn grooming on young people. But my colleagues and I were also subjected to AI-enabled deepfakes through Grok. This blew up over Christmas. Elon Musk's XAI's Grok was used to nudify, I think it was over 1 million women. And myself and 2 colleagues were caught up in this. And my colleagues were depicted in violent pornographic videos. I was undressed and put into bikinis and lingerie. And you know, the experience of this helped me understand what so many women and girls go through, and how much more traumatic for a young girl in a school to find her deepfake images being circulated and shared and bought and sold. But I did experience this as a violation, as a identity theft, as an invasion of privacy. In the UK, schools need more help to tackle rising numbers of sexual assaults by pupils. Charities say better guidance is needed over increasing numbers of sexual assaults in UK primary schools. Abuse claims and rape culture identified at 1,600 primary schools. This is a quote from the charity Everyone's Invited. And I had a theory for a number of years that the rise in harmful sexual behaviours in schools was a contributing driver of school refusal and school absenteeism, because I had so many girls saying, I don't feel safe at school. I had really young girls crying in front of me saying, I don't want to go to school anymore. I don't feel safe. They were highly distressed. And so I was pleased to see the UK Agenda Alliance report on this, sexual violence pushing girls out of school. We can't address absenteeism and school refusal if we don't address the unwelcoming and harmful environments in schools which threaten the physical and mental health of students. Girls face an incredibly hostile environment at school. Research shows sexual harassment and violence can lead to lower school engagement, anxiety, alienation from teachers, and poor academic achievement. So it's easy to see why some girls wouldn't want to attend school when it's such an unsafe and intimidatory space. I just found this before joining you here, reported by the BBC in the last 24 hours, the surprising reality of how teenage girls still define themselves. Chronic school absenteeism in girls more than doubled from 6% to 13% between 2017 and 18 and 2024-25. Now, a number of you there know, because we work very closely with you, hello Ian and Tony and your team, to establish an age verification trial in Australia. So our federal government had originally said no, that they wouldn't be piloting an age assurance trial in Australia. Collective Shout spearheaded the campaign to reverse that decision, to force the government to reverse it. And the tipping point was when we spearheaded an open letter signed by more than 50 women's safety and child protection experts in this country. And at the same time, the Prime Minister had called an emergency cabinet meeting because of the epidemic of violence against women in this country. And as a result, the Prime Minister announced new measures to tackle violence against women, including reversing this decision not to have a trial and having the trial. So it was great to work with a number of you to achieve that outcome. And there's the cover of the main report. Some of my resources I'll mention here: Getting Real, Challenging the Sexualization of Girls, my book Big Porning, Exposing the Harms of the Global Porn Industry, which has a number of UK and American contributors as well. And He Chose Porn Over Me, Women Harmed by Men Who Use Porn. Some articles you can find on my website, melindatankhardrees.com. Why Consent Doesn't Stand a Chance Against Porn Culture, When the Moaning Stops, How Porn is Damaging Young People, published by Eureka Street, long form essay. And if you'd like to read our Sexual Harassment of Teachers report, there's a QR code there that will take you to the report, or you can just go to our website, collectiveshout.org, to find that report. Please read it, please share it, and let's get more awareness about this and more action. You can follow me, I'm on all the socials, and also please follow Collective Shout as well. We are running campaigns globally, including in the UK, and we'd love to have your support. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Melinda. I'll just start off with abusing my position as chair and ask a question. So our law requiring age verification for all pornography publishers finally kicked in on the 25th of July last year, and it was preceded by, or about the same time, we got lots of reports in the media about a massive increase, in inverted commas, in the downloads of VPN software as a mechanism. And the suggestion was this was happening because people wanted to evade the age verification laws. I wonder, I mean, a lot of that information was completely bogus, by the way. For one thing, downloading is not the same as using, and they weren't comparing previous rates of use of VPNs with current rates and so on. But I wondered if I know your law finally kicked in last month, was it, in Australia? And I wondered if you'd had similar stories.
Oh, look, you know, these arguments are used by those with vested interests. And I think that one of the best pieces of evidence for the fact that these new measures will likely be effective and are a threat to the industry is that Pornhub, as it's done in multiple other places, decided to shut up shop in Australia. Well, you know, good riddance, you know, see you later. The fact that Pornhub refuses to comply with age verification laws anywhere they are passed, to me, is really all we need to know, that they don't want to have to comply. And, you know, I think that's all we need to know. I mean, there were so many vested interest arguments, but, you know, we insisted on putting the well-being of children ahead of the vested interests of the industry. Obviously, these are early days and we don't have all the measures yet of success, but at least it's one obstacle in the way of children accessing rape porn, incest porn, you know, torture porn, extreme degradation of women, where before we had nothing.
Okay, cheers. Tom?
Hi, thanks for that, Melissa. Interestingly, I was just talking with some folks in the foyer before this chat about how this feels like asymmetric warfare. The difficulty of undoing the damage that we see is far, far greater than actually causing the damage in the first place. So I'm really glad for more people to be working to address this problem. Where would you like us to go next? What obviously the sort of the ball is rolling with age verification on adult sites. That's great. Where should we be going next? What do you want to see us helping you to push?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things I'd love to mention. We have a global campaign to ban undressing and nudifying apps. We have been consulting at the UN level on this. We're seeing some movement in the European Union on this, and we have a couple of good supporters there, MPs there in the UK that are with us on this, and we're working with them. We need this to happen on a global scale. It's not good enough for one country to do it. It has to happen unilaterally. So we'd love you to check out our campaign to ban nudifying and undressing apps. We produced a report we did a study actually, we researched some of the most popular apps and we wrote a report on that, which you can find on our website. We also have a campaign to get Grok out of the app stores. Grok is still in the app stores and is still being misused. So we'd love you to join that one. I'm very interested in what's just happened in the UK with your policing laws there, and with, I think, proposed amendments on incest, dealing with incest porn and step porn on major porn sites. I would like to see that applied to social media sites as well. For the last year, I've been studying the selling of children on TikTok. And with incest themes, step themes, father, daughter, uncle, niece, big brother, little sister, children, little girls in bed seducing their fathers, all on TikTok, and children being sold for online sexual abuse with codes, with foreign money exchanges, with links to encrypted apps to find the child, all happening out in the open on TikTok. So I'm really pleased to see a crackdown on incest-themed porn on porn platforms, but I would really like to see more pressure being applied to TikTok for becoming a predator's playground, for becoming essentially a pedophile directory and pedophile exchange. This is all happening out in the open, and it's, you know, it's not even a designated porn site. So I'd love to see some efforts made there.
Thanks a lot. Question there.
We also have a campaign to ban child sex abuse dolls on a global scale as well. You can find out about that on our website too.
We already have a law on that. You might check that out. Chat there. Yeah.
Right.
Hi. Thanks for the presentation. Really interesting. I work for the Dutch police. I'm a consultant, but I'm currently working with the Dutch police in preventing youth cybercrime. So it's slightly different crime area or area, but the synergy is that our target audience is also young boys. Youth cybercrime is in the title. Young kids getting into cyber offending. So I was just wondering, where have you seen interventions be successful with that young target audience?
Not enough. I'd love to know. I'd love to talk to you separately about what you're seeing. I've been looking into AI chatbots being used to incite youth crime, to incite extreme, hardcore violence. Some of the global sextortion rings, which also encourage extreme violence, where children harm themselves or harm others, or abuse animals. So again, the big tech has been allowed to cause so much harm, and there's been no safety by design built into the system. The industry hasn't shown it cares, and I haven't seen enough intervention, to be honest with you. And the law can barely keep up, particularly around the AI chatbots that are encouraging extreme acts of violence and youth crime. So yeah, I'd really welcome a chance to meet with you separately on this.
Great. So we're right up against the time limit, which we have to observe because of the global nature of the event. Is there one last question from the room? No, I don't think so. Well, Melinda, thanks a lot. I was very, very interested in what you were saying, and I will definitely be signing up on your social media or whatever, particularly that stuff about noises, sexual noises being made by young kids. That's not something that I'd heard of before, or not being as a feature within schools. So that's a good one to latch on to. So thanks very much indeed, and have a good evening or rest of the day or whatever it is.
Thank you, and all the best with the rest of the
Cheers.
summer. Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much. Bye-bye.